Hello, I'm Ian Scales and you're watching TelecomTV's M2M channel. The program's entitled The Big Conversation, and this is where we want you to participate. So fill in the box below with your own questions, your own observations about what you're about to see. The question this week is standards. Are there too many of them?
There's always a case to say there are too many standards, and every industry thinks that the standard they have over there sort of fits the bill, but then they need to do something slightly different. I'm not confident that they take what is already there and change it slightly. I think they generally go back to square one and build it from scratch. I think there are enough technologies and enough standards out there to do what we need to do. There are low power radio standards. There are data format standards. There are how do you get one cloud application to talk to another? Those API standards exist. Yes, you might want to do something specific and proprietary once you get the data, but I think if we can just agree that use one of these two formats, or use, the physical layer, how you get the data from the sensor to the cloud is immaterial. But as long as the data is formatted in a way that the cloud can understand without having to go through translation engines, etc., well, that's a good enough start. But nobody has said, do it this way, and then these guys can build services on top of it. And that's the bit we want to try and address.
What's the key issue facing this market?
There's only one issue that really matters, and that is, broadly speaking, I'd summarise it as architecture. The problem is that there is no overall framework for Internet of Things which would allow developers to work on the bit that they're good at and is important to them without having to also do all the other bits. The telecoms industry's view of this is that end-to-end means things must be developed in a silo. So we're in the value-added data services phase. If you remember what data services were like before the web existed, that's where we are at the moment. Anybody who wants to do an application, which you can call Internet of Things or machine to machine, has to make every bit of it. There is no part that they can take for granted is there, whether it's hypertext or cascading screens or anything. None of that is there. Everything has to be made from scratch.
What's the best way to build this market?
Well, this is the age-old challenge. You can always increase the capabilities. You never actually achieve perfection. So if we can come out with something that's 80% ready, and people can start discussing it, arguing for or against what the different recommendations are, I think we can make progress a lot quicker than that, and people can start to work around that. If you have a case study that says we did this and it also followed the recommendations, it would give people confidence to really accelerate what their development process looks like. And I would much rather see us put something out, iterate again with constant input than try and sit in a darkened room and come up with the perfect solution, because I can't imagine that the small group of people that we have is going to produce that perfect solution. It needs more input, but it's a balance between have everybody contribute and never get anywhere, or get somewhere and then iterate it going forward.
Is the connectivity part of this market bound to become more commoditized?
Yes, it's bound to become commoditized because by and large there's the connectivity part of networks is standards-based, it's standardized. One connected bit is much like another connected bit, but there are some opportunities for differentiation, partly on quality and throughput and bandwidth, but most of that's not terribly important for M2M. So the most important bits of differentiation are to do with the interface to the service and the interface to the customer. Some of that is to do with provisioning, how easy it is to set up, and some of it is to do with how easy it is to actually interrogate, make interfaces, control your units, your modules, if you like. So there is basis for differentiation for the telecoms operators, but it isn't purely on the data throughput.
What about the issue of cellular versus Wi-Fi?
The connectivity part is not the trickiest, most difficult bit of doing Internet of Things or machine to machine. If we were designing this properly, and we will be eventually, then the applications will be agnostic as to how they're connected. Wi-Fi is quite cheap now. Lots of devices have got both Wi-Fi and cellular in them. But it is also the case that there are lots of use cases that really do need for the module to be connected either all the time or wherever it is. So, you know, the trucking, the track and trace type applications, the remote valve monitoring and all that kind of stuff is often going to take place in a location where Wi-Fi is not available. Even if it's a location where Wi-Fi is not available, then the public mobile network is a really good way to offer backhaul. So I don't think these things are actually competitors for the most part for M2M applications. They are different pieces of the puzzle.
How will the market develop?
The automotive is a good example. So automotive is a market that uses an awful lot of microcontrollers and electronics. You know, hundreds of dollars of chips in every car. As they add new capabilities to the car, they have this desire to have zero collisions, zero fatalities. This requires more and more safety-based systems in the car, requires more electronics. And the average selling price of chips within a car is higher than in other industries. But the other piece about it is, in automotive, a lot of the real cutting-edge development happens there, and then it bleeds over into industrial automation and into medical. We're seeing these requirements for safety in automotive today, but that's now appearing in other marketplaces. So if you do have a focus on automotive, your opportunity long-term to spread out into other markets is also enhanced.
Thanks for watching, but don't go yet. Put your questions, your observations in the panel below, and then next time we do the big conversation, we may reflect them back to you. Once again, thanks very much for watching.
There was one device pushing to one database, a new phenomenon which is more about the many-to-many connections. This is actually quite a tough technical challenge, and we've pretty much cracked it. Somebody else might actually be able to create an analytical tool that makes your product even more valuable. We're open to almost any exploration.
Asman, thank you very much.